What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I'm Philip Sessions, your public speaking and communication coach. And we've got a special guest in for you today, Trevor Cowley. He is the owner of he's a goofball, first of all.
I gotta throw you off a little bit, dude. I can't let my intro be so smooth like everybody else's, you know.
Dude, that's right. That's right. Well, this guy here, he's nothing special anymore. He interrupts introductions, but he's one of the owners of Easier Accounting. He's also a founder of the Real Business Owners, which is a podcast. It is a mastermind group of like-minded business individuals that are coming together to help each other out, and just an all-around great guy doing some kind of crazy 2-a-day, 1,000 days in a row challenge where he's just running all the time, eats ice cream, and still has the body of some guy that's getting ready to get on stage or something like that. But we're done talking about all this. I see that head getting a little bit bigger over time.
I gotta take my hat off. The hat's
get that hat off, man,
sudden, bro.
but no, Trevor, man, it's awesome to have you on here. I can't wait for us to talk about your journey, and really, we're going to start with the podcast and go through that and how you became an effective communicator, building out your company and everything. So tell us a little bit more about yourself on a personal side, though.
Well, I'm 39 years old, married, 3 kids, own several businesses. Right? As you said, Easier Accounting, 60-day credit repair, the Real Business Owners Mastermind, have some investments in other businesses outside of that. I'll tell you what, man, the last 13 or 14 years has been rough. But it's been worth it. I will tell you that. So, just a little bit about me. I grew up very, very poor. My mom raised 7 kids. The lights were constantly getting shut off. We'd light candles to, be able to see kind of around the house when the sun went down. And I remember her crying to the utility department, begging for them to turn the utilities back on, saying, "I've got 7 kids. Can I please pay you, $50 on Friday?" And so I think that, my background in growing up with a little bit less than made me hungry. I was very aware as a young kid that I was poor and that this type of environment isn't okay. And so I'm a big believer on putting yourself in the right environments, because that environment wasn't conducive to me. Usually when you grow up with less than or poor or in a bad neighborhood, what's the statistics say about you graduating high school or becoming addicted to drugs or, going to jail? Like, I didn't graduate high school on time. I had to do packets after high school. I ended up becoming a drug addict for 4 years, right? Like, there's so many different statistics that go along with an environment that is less than or poor or bad neighborhood. And I went through and checked off all of those statistics and basically became the environment that I was raised in, right? And so nowadays I purposely curate and create environments that are of growth, because I know that if I don't do that, I can succumb to something negative and make bad decisions, right? And so you talked about, this 1,000 2-a-days every single day for 1,000 days. That ends September 27th, 2024, right? And so I'm on day like 679 or 680, somewhere right around there. And that's me curating and creating an environment for me every single day that keeps me intentional and keeps me disciplined so that I don't fall off, right? So I don't utilize free time in a negative way. If you stack your schedule and you create these things, these non-negotiables that you have to do every single day, your likelihood of doing something bad or not living with intention minimizes, right? And so I'm all about surrounding myself with the right people, the right information, creating environments that are of growth. And that all stems from being in an environment that really wasn't the healthiest environment growing up.
Yeah, man. And that's an incredible background. And thank you for sharing that. And one of the things that really just kind of pops out to me, especially here at the end, you're talking about these 2-a-days. You've talked about the multiple businesses that you run. You've got the podcast, you've got a family, all of these things. And one thing that sticks out right away, and you mentioned about having these non-negotiables. How in the world do you set these up and then be able to still perform at a high level in all of these different areas? Because as a business owner, as an individual, sometimes it's it fails. We fail at one area, but yet we can exceed really well in one, but not all of them. And you seem to do pretty well at all across the board. So how are you able to succeed in all of those?
I would say, again, intention, right? Like, I'll tell you this, man. I decided that I'm done watching other people live an amazing life. I'm done feeling inspired by watching somebody else do something awesome. Like, we all go to social media, we see the David Goggins type people, and we just like, we get motivated for that micro moment, that second, and we feel badass. It's almost like watching a Rocky movie. Like, after you're done, like, you feel like that you're a boxer, right? Like, you feel inspired to do something, and then you go to sleep and wake up the next day and you're still the same old individual with the same bad habits, with the same crappy situation, finances, body, whatever it is, right? And I decided, like, God has given us infinite potential. Like, I want to take this thing for a ride. I want to see really what I'm capable of, because these people that inspire us, that we look to, they're just human beings. So how could you do all of the extracurricular stuff? How can I know every stat about football, baseball, basketball, and at the same time be a good husband, be a good father, be in great shape, own successful businesses? It got to a point where I was like, okay, I have to prioritize my life and I have to design my day. And I sat down and I said, okay, what are my priorities? My health is a priority. My family's a priority. My faith is a priority. My fitness is a priority. Anything that doesn't fall within inside of those boxes, I don't give it time. I don't give it energy. Like, I'm a type of an individual that you won't see me hanging out or kicking it. I don't got time for that, right? Like, I'm designing and building a life. And when you're building a life, you don't have just like a bunch of free downtime just to hang out, just to kick it, to go drink or to go party, or to sit around on Saturdays or Sundays and watch 8 hours of football. And then on Monday at the office or at the job site, know every single stat. And we start talking, oh my gosh, did you see that play that coach called? Or did you see so-and-so? I can't believe he threw that. Like, we're so vested into these other people's lives and the decisions that they're making, but yet we're not analyzing the decisions that we're making, right? And so to me, it just got to a point, and I'm guilty of it. Like, I'm guilty of sitting around and watching football. I'm guilty of going out and partying. Like, I had that life, but I couldn't live the life that I'm living now and live the life that I was living. Right? Eventually, we got to take the old version of us around the barn and put it down and recreate ourselves. And most people will get to a point where they hit what's called a midlife crisis. And what I believe a midlife crisis really is that is the old version of you that no longer serves you with where you're currently at in life. Right? But yet we're not willing to make the necessary changes in order to get a better outcome. So the misery that you're experiencing during this midlife crisis is you just hanging on to the old version of you that no longer serves you anymore. And you see people get stuck in their ways. They have the same habits, the same routines that are all negative, that don't serve them from the time that they're 25, 35, 45, 50. If they smoke for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? If they drink for the rest of their life, right? And so I think that we utilize these external things, these stimulants, to forget about our real reality, the situations that we're currently facing. Like, if I'm out of shape and I'm broke, of course I would want to escape that reality versus face it head on, right? And so I just got to a point where it was like, okay, I have to be, if I'm going to do what I believe I'm capable of doing on this earth, if I look at these people and they inspire me and I feel this certain feeling watching them run 20 miles or 30 miles or 50 miles or 100 miles, like, what would it feel like if I was disciplined enough to actually live it versus just watch it? Like, we've got to stop watching other people be great and live their life in an awesome way. And we have to start designing our days in order to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish, in order to become the individual that we want to become. If you don't do that, again, you're just going to be probably a product of your environment. If you drink, you probably hang out with other people who drink. If you smoke, you hang out with other people who smoke. If you're broke, you probably hang out with other people that are broke. Like, and that was one of the first steps that I had to make, is I had to stop hanging out in all of the old environments around the old friends that just no longer served me. Right. And I think that we want to be around the crowd and around the people because we feel so low. We want to be a part of something and around people and feel accepted. Right. Versus going at something alone. And if you decide to do something great with your life and leave the life that you're currently living and get rid of the version of you that you are today, you're going to have to go through a period of being alone. Right. And we would rather be surrounded by people but feel lonely than actually just be alone. And I'm okay being alone, but being happy with who I am because I know I'm putting in the work on a day-to-day basis to become the best version of myself. That brings me peace. Like, it's undeniable evidence. When is my mind going to turn on me, bro? Like, we all have this mind that turns on us, that doubts us, that says we're not good enough, imposter syndrome, whatever it is, right? But what is your brain going to utilize against you? Dude, you've done 2-a-days every day for 1,000 days. Dude, you've done that, like, how can it belittle me? How can it make me feel less than? I'm putting in undeniable proof every single day to my brain that I am who I say I am, and that I'm willing to do whatever it takes in order to get the result I want. And once you start doing those things, your confidence increases. And as your confidence increases, what happens is your goals get bigger and bigger and bigger because you're closer and closer and closer to them. Right now, like, people with who they are and what they've accomplished can't even fathom what their capabilities are until they start on the journey of exercising discipline and consistency. And along that path, you're going to start seeing what you're truly capable of. And I love the process. That's the difference. Everybody wants the result. I'm okay with something taking 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, because I know I'm doing the work and I'm a student of inevitability. The decisions that I'm making on a day-to-day basis, it's inevitable where I'm going to be as long as I keep making these decisions. And that's what brings me peace. I can go through the difficulty in peace because I know where I'm headed and I know the product that will be at the end, right? And it's going to be an individual that's confident, that's strong, that's certain in uncertainty, right? Like the environment, the market that we're in, we're going to be in a recession. There was COVID. There's so much uncertainty on earth. Don't you want to be the most certain thing in your environment, no matter the environment that you're in? And that's the individual that I'm creating. And that's the individual that I want to continue to become, because the more certain I become, the more certain the people around me become, because they're a part of my environment.
Yeah. And I've seen this transformation with you. And I love the passion that you have behind this. And I think about when I had that kind of same realization was $1 Million Mastermind 2021. I had joined Apex, I believe, in 2019, or sorry, Arte in 2019. I joined Apex in 2021 after that MDM event. But that's where I realized, because I'd known some of these people from Arte. They were on the higher levels. Of course, they were making more than me in business and all this stuff. And so I understood why I couldn't get to those tables. But I had always heard the saying that, hey, if there's not a seat at the table, make one. But that just didn't feel right to me. I didn't want to go to a table that I wasn't invited to. Like, yeah, I wanted to be there, of course. I wanted to be around those people, but I didn't want to have to like force my way into that table. And so I started to actually think about, I'm going to make my own table. I'm going to make my table so great that those people want to try and make a seat at my table. And guess what? I can invite them in when I'm ready, and they're going to want to come and everything. So I kind of had the same realization as you. And so I've got one question before I want to take it back to, I've got something from your Arte days and kind of talking about the podcast. But how have you went about communicating this, especially with your family? I could see that being a topic of contention, where it's like, hey, I'm spending all this time on the business. I'm spending all this time doing 2-a-days. I'm spending all this time on me. How are you making sure that your wife and your kids understand? And I know that you are going in and doing things with them, but how are you helping them understand that these are things that you need to do? And while it may be taking time away at some points, you're still going to give them that time at other points.
Well, it's made me a better individual, bro. Mm-hmm. And if I'm a better individual, that means I'm a better husband. That means I'm a better father, right? And so if I feel more certain, more confident, then I'm bringing a more certain and confident individual into my family environment, And so like, it was not yesterday, Sunday, but it was last Sunday. I ran 8 miles with my son because he turned 8 years old. He saw me run 37 miles when I turned 37, 38 when I turned 38. And then when I turned 39 just a few months ago, I ran 40 miles. And so he's seen me do this. And when he turned 7, said, Dad, I want to run 7 miles when I turn 7 years old. And I said, let's do it. And then this year he turned 8 and he ran 8 miles. And so it's like, when you say, well, how do you make time? Again, there's plenty of time, but there's not plenty of time to do all the bullshit and to do the things that should be a priority in your life. You can't have both, right? And so I got rid of the crap, right? I don't watch TV. I don't hang out. Like when I hang out, it's with my family. Like I am very routine oriented. Like I'm not hard to find, bro. Like, you know what I mean? At this time, I'm out running. At this time, I'm eating breakfast. At this time, I'm lifting weights. At this time, you're going to see me at the office. At this time, you're going to see me at home. At this time, you're going to see me at my son's football game or my daughter's soccer game, right? Like I don't have time. I do. Like so many people, I hear, oh man, this Netflix series, that's such a great series. I don't know. Like, I don't care. That doesn't impact or affect my life whatsoever. So I'm not going to spend time, energy, or effort sitting on the couch digesting something that doesn't make me grow. Right. And so how do you have time? By getting rid of all the things that drain your time, whether it's the social media stuff, whether it's going out drinking or hanging out with your friends. I used to golf a lot. I don't golf anymore. Like all of these things that used to take up 4 hours on a Saturday or whatever. Like, look, dude, when I wake up and run a minimum of 8 miles every single morning, I do that. My daughter's getting ready for school. She watches me go out the door. And then I purposely take a certain route where my son's bus stop is when I'm coming back because he's at the bus stop and he's going to watch me run right past him. I give him a hug in the morning. And then my house is like, literally less than a quarter of a mile away from that. Right. And so like I'm purposely designing an environment for them where they're watching me do what I'm doing. And that's completely normal to them. Right. My daughter ran 13 miles when she turned 13. So when you say like, how do you have, like, I am impacting my kids in a positive way because their level of hard is different than other kids' level of hard because they're in an environment where what I do is completely normal. Now, there was one time that I had to have a conversation with my wife because I ran 38 miles and I was like, hey, I got to go get my second workout. She's like, you just ran for 8.5 hours. You're going to go get another workout in? Like, isn't that a little much? Right. And so she was kind of pushing back. And I will tell you this, like anytime that you try to do something great, you will have pushback. People will test you. There's nothing more unattractive than a man that says he's going to do something, will sacrifice himself and not do that thing that he says he's going to do. There's no way your wife's going to have respect for you. But they will still challenge some of the things. Like if you tell your wife that you're not going to drink anymore and you've been drinking a lot and maybe she drinks with you, guess what? She might ask you one time to go out for a drink. And even if she wants to do it, subconsciously, she won't respect you if you say yes. She knows that you'll deviate from the things that you say that are valuable, the things that you say that are of a priority, from the commitments that you say that you have. Right. And so I flat out told her, I said, look, I'm a better husband ever since I started doing this. I'm a better father ever since I started doing this. Would you disagree with that statement? And she said, no. And I said, I'm telling you right now, I could listen to you right now, not go out and do that thing, but I'll ultimately resent you for it. I have a calling within inside my soul, and I don't know what it is. I feel like what I'm doing is the right thing to do. I can't fully explain it because it's not a feeling or an emotion that anybody else has but myself. I can either honor this feeling and this emotion and this commitment that I believe that I should honor, or I can honor a commitment that somebody else believes that I shouldn't honor. And I told her, I'm telling you this right now, and this is the only time I'm ever going to say this. I will not accept mediocre or average, not in my finances, not in my health, and not in our relationship. And I would hope that you would want the same.
Man.
I strapped up, went out and got my second. And ever since then, we haven't had a problem. She's very, very, very supportive of it, right? Because she sees the impact that it's having on the kids. I am walking discipline. I am walking commitment. They understand what sacrifice looks like. And if you say you're going to do something great, there will be an exchange. You will have to say no to many things in order to get what it is that you say that you want. The problem is people aren't willing to pay the price. They're not willing to make that exchange. Whatever you say yes to, that means you have to say no to something. When I say yes to getting up early, that means I say no to staying up late and binging TV or staying up late and drinking, right? Like there's just certain things that I've got rid of that made me a better person. And I've replaced those with things that ultimately serve me, that serve my family, and serve the community and the mastermind that I'm trying to build.
Yeah, man, mic drop right there for sure. But keeping to those commitments is such a crucial thing. And I'll agree with you there. I know that's some of what's happened in my own relationship where there's been things like, hey, I'm going to do this. And then I haven't committed to that. And afterwards I see how detrimental that is. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, this and this and this. And at the end of the day, it's really just an excuse.
Yeah.
But I know why perhaps something didn't happen. And of course, I didn't explain all that. But then I could see that the disappointment in my wife when that did happen. So definitely, especially for the guys that are listening right now, keep those commitments. It's so important to do that. And then really just going and actually explaining if for some reason, whatever reason you couldn't keep that commitment, because there are times you get hospitalized, something extreme like that you can't keep, let's say a fitness commitment. Understandable, but still.
Yeah. I mean, if you get hit by a bus.
I'm still going to get my second workout in.
Yeah. I mean, that's a little bit different, and I've thought about that. I'm like, man, what if something bro, I will probably, if something did happen where I couldn't do it, I would I don't cry much, but dude, I've given everything I have to this.
Yeah.
Everything I mean, I wanted to create a commitment so big and so large that if I accomplish it, that it would be undeniable to my own mind that I am a much greater version of myself than the individual that started it. And I said, man, what if I did 1,000 days? What type of individual would I become over that journey of 1,000 days? Andy Frisella says, show me your last 1,000 days and I'll show you why you are where you are. And I did 75 hard and I was like, maybe I'm just going to keep doing this 2-a-day thing and reading every single day for all year. And then at the end of the year, I'm like, man, I'm 365 days in. I'm going to do it for 1,000 days. Because that saying that he said, show me your last 1,000 days. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I want to do something that the individual that talks about doing something doesn't even do.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I want to take it to the next level. And if I do that, again, that's undeniable evidence to my mind that I'm one of one, if not one of very few people on the planet.
Yeah.
And that's who I feel like I'm destined to be. And I think a lot of us feel that we were meant to do something great or we're destined for something great. Like we feel it. Like if we're sitting around on Sunday and watching football all day, like we kind of feel lazy. We feel like that we should have at least got up and did a workout or moved our body or whatever. And I'm not saying don't watch football or don't do that. I'm not saying for everybody to live a life that Trevor lives. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is if you hadn't made deposits in the areas that are what you say are a priority and you're doing something like that, shame on you. Like, have you moved your body? Like, I believe that look at our body. Look at the human design, bro. Like, we're built to move. Like, it's completely obvious based upon the design. And what happens when you move, bro? You feel great.
Yeah. Start getting more energy.
So if we're built to move and when you move, you feel great, wouldn't you want to move your body? Right? Like sitting down, being lethargic, like the fact that we have the ability to do that and we choose to do that is sad. 100 years ago or 200 years ago, imagine pioneers going from the east to the west. Like, dude, they didn't have an easy day. They didn't have a day where they could sit back and chill and watch football or this, that. Like, People were dying all over the place. They're trekking across the most treacherous lands in the entire world, right? Peaks and valleys, and like every day was difficult. Any day that I don't want to get out of bed, I'm like, dude, I'm only running for an hour and a half, and then it's over. The pain is over. The misery is over, and I'm going to be glad that I did it. But imagine going through pain and misery that you couldn't control. Unforeseen circumstances that get placed upon you. Who are you when those situations arise? If you want to be a good basketball player, a good baseball player, a good football player, you got to do what? You got to get your reps. If I want to be prepared for something that's unforeseen, that I know will be difficult, because this thing called life will dish us all something very difficult. We just don't know when, and we don't know how it'll show up. I want to get my mental discipline reps every single day. So when something unforeseen happens, I've seen my mind turn on me so many different times that I'm prepared for whatever the situation is, because I'll do whatever's needed to be done when I don't feel like doing it, because I've got 1,000 days worth of reps in my system. The problem is when issues arise in the average person's life, they become weak. They quit. They give up. They fold. Why? Because they don't have any mental discipline reps. Every Sunday, anytime that they got free time, they're watching Netflix series, they're on social media, they're digesting football all day long. They know the stats about this guy or that guy and what his contract looks like, but they don't even know what their body percent fat is. They don't know the stats on themselves. They haven't got up off the couch and ran a mile for probably a decade. And they're literally just tarnishing the human design, which I believe is a slap in the face to God that created you and that designed you. Like, that's like a slap in the face for a Ferrari or Lamborghini if you have one and you just don't ever take it out. What's the point? Like, we have this Ferrari and this Lamborghini that we just sit there with it.
Yeah,
like there's levers that we can pull to create certain emotions in our body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't pull those levers, then we're just going to ride this emotional roller coaster based upon whatever inputs come in, right? Whatever we see on social media, cool, we feel a little high and then we're low, high, low. Like, I don't make decisions based upon emotions anymore. I make decisions based upon the things that I said I was going to do and just run the play, honor what it is that needs to be done so that I can become the man that I told everybody that I'd become. And the reason why I announce, hey, 1,000 days, I want people to know, so the moment that I don't want to get out of bed, that there's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people. I've announced it on our podcast, 10,000 listeners know that I'm doing it. How big of a bitch would I be to say I'm going to do something and have 10,000 people know that I folded?
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
I think we need to speak what it is that we want into existence a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right, man. Think and Grow Rich, right? Right there. I'm actually rereading that book right now, which is really exciting. So, but in you mentioning all this, I couldn't help, and I can't think of the whole quote, but hard times make strong men. And that's really what we're trying to become as a strong man or a strong woman. And so we need to create those hard times, essentially, because in the United States, it's really not hard times, right? At least at the moment, it's really not that tough. We don't have it bad. So we have to really make an environment to make it hard. But now I want to take us back. So we're going to change gears a little bit here and take us back to a few years ago. And I know I've heard the story on your podcast and everything, which, by the way, is Real Business Owners. Definitely check it out if you're a real business owner. Now, anybody that wants to get some great information on business, definitely go check that out. But you mentioned this before, that you joined this group called Arte, and you and Kel did, and y'all decided one day that it'd be kind of cool to start this thing called a podcast. And y'all didn't know what to call it, so y'all just decided, well, Real Business Owners. So talk us through this story, because clearly you started with 0 listeners, and you just mentioned like 10,000 an episode. So it's clearly grown into something to pretty big, pretty substantial. But what was that journey like, going from 0 listeners to now you've got several thousands of people listening in every single episode.
Well, dude, I mean, everybody's back in the day. I mean, what was that? 2000, it was probably 2019. You know, we were spending $6,000 a month to be a part of the high level RTA syndicate. And that was each, me and my business partner, Kel. So total, we were spending $12,000 a month, you know, to do these meetups and be around Ed and Andy and information. But in reality, there was something that happened prior to that. Okay. And we went to a Gary V conference in 2018. Okay. It was called Agent 2021. Kel had a feeling that we should be there. So he bought tickets, and it was in Florida, and we're in Utah. Right. So it's kind of a big trip. And it was for like real estate agents, insurance agents, and like mortgage brokers. Like it had nothing to do with us, but he had a feeling that we should be there. Right. And so we go there. Gary V talks about social media like he always does, right? And he says, if you guys are here and you can afford this ticket and you can afford to be here, you could afford a videographer. I highly suggest that you peel off $3,000 a month and you hire a videographer. And so me and Kel kind of chatted about that. Yeah, we probably should, right? And we're like, that's what we're gonna do. Like we're gonna go all in on social media, right? And it was we got home. The motivation kind of wore off of the event, right? Like, I'm gonna, yes, yeah. And then you get home and it's like, okay, business as usual, right? And so even though we were still talking about it, we're like, hey, yeah, we need to do it. We never put an ad out or anything to say, hey, we want a videographer. So this was like, his conference was in January of 2018. And then it was like March of 2018. So it was like 2 months later. I have a kid sitting in my office. He's interviewing for a sales job. I said, cool, when could you start? And he says, well, in a few months when I get out of college. And I said, what the hell are you going to college for, bro? But you're in my office interviewing for a sales job. That doesn't even make sense. You don't need a college degree to be a salesperson, right? Mm-hmm. He said, well, I promised my mom that I would go to school and I would graduate and I would finish college. And that means a lot to her, and I want to honor that. And I'm like, cool. I'm like, what are you going to school for? And he goes, like video work, videography, like film. And I'm like, really? And I said, how would you like to be hired to just be our videographer? And he's like, oh, I'd be open to that. So I call Kel. I'm like, yo, dude, I've got a videographer sitting in my office that was interviewing for a sales job. And he's like, well, we should hire him. I'm like, I know we should. And so I get off the phone with Kel, and the kid said he couldn't start till after school. And I'm like, well, could you start part-time, like 20 hours a week? If you're going to school right now, start coming in and filming content or whatever. And he did, and we did the camera thing or whatever. And then we joined RTA, and they started talking about podcasts and, you know, all this stuff or whatever, right? And we did it like when we first hired a videographer, we're like just sitting there like trying to create content off the top of our heads, right? And we're like, damn, like this is a lot harder than it seems, you know? And so it was like, well, maybe we should start a podcast and utilize the podcast kind of as a way to create content, right? And so that's what we did. And all that was underneath Easier Accounting at one point. Easier Accounting Instagram got shut down when I grew it to about 10,000 followers. And I was devastated, right? And then I sat back and I'm like, okay, if I stay devastated in a state of frustration, then that's not going to give my mind the creative ability to free think our way out of this situation and to figure out what our next move is. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to rush into recreating an Easier Accounting account. I'm like, first off, accounting's not fun, cool, or sexy. So who wants to follow an accounting firm on social media? Right? Like, I'm like,
10,000 people apparently.
Well, I'm like, well, I own one, and I wouldn't want to follow an accounting firm. You know? So I started sitting there thinking, I'm like, well, how can we camouflage this a little bit? Right? Because if you see an ad for State Farm, even if it's a good ad, it's less shareable because you feel like they have an agenda behind the ad. They're like, well, yeah, of course, they're tugging at my heartstrings. They just want my business. They want me to sign up for State Farm Insurance or Allstate or whatever it is, right? And so I was like, we can't do it under our company account. We've got to camouflage it. I'm like, who are we? Right? Like, I'm like, well, we're real business owners. We're owners and operators. So I start writing down owners and operators, real business owners, and start writing down like a list of different things. And then I start searching the name on Instagram to see if they were available. Real Business Owners was available. And I was like, okay, cool. So I pull Kel in my office and my other partner. I'm like, hey, I got an idea. We're going to camouflage the account. Like if we own an accounting firm and we want real business owners to listen to us and to work with us, we're real business owners. They're real business owners. Like this is a way for them to identify with the name and the brand and for us to identify with the name and the brand. And it brings us together. Right. And so that's how Real Business Owners Instagram account was formed. And then right after that, it was like it started kind of popping and people started asking, like, do you have podcasts? Do you have YouTube? Do you have this? We're like, no, like we're just recording, whatever. And then all this stuff at Arate and everybody's talking about starting a podcast. We're like, okay, that'll be easier to create content. And then we started the Real Business Owners Podcast within a few months of starting the Real Business Owners Instagram account. And then from there, it just kind of, we got 50 listens and then like 75 and then 100 and then, you know what I mean? And then it's just kind of climbed and climbed and climbed. And so it's been quite the fun little journey, this Real Business Owners ride that we've been on. And now it's turned into its own mastermind, right? So we're big believers of, surrounding yourself with the right people in the right environments, just as I said at the very beginning of the podcast. So why don't we curate an environment of growth, an environment that we were in at one point that helped create the individuals that we are and the results that we're currently experiencing. So let's have this thing be full circle. We now have people operating our businesses on a day-to-day basis. Our credit repair, we have a CEO at Easier Accounting. It's like, okay, now it's time to do something different and give back. Like we've made money. Now it's an impact play. How can we impact the community in the industry that served us, which is the industry of business that changed our life, the industry of self-improvement. And that's really kind of the story of RBO.
Yeah, man. And I just see like everything we've talked about here is really just, you have an idea, you take action on it, and you really, at the end of the day, you're just kind of figuring it out as you go. But you just take that action and create the environment that you want to create rather than waiting around to see what other people are doing or just hoping that it kind of happens. No, you just started creating action based on a vision that you had, which is super awesome. But I know we're kind of running out of time here, and I want to get to our last question. And I think I already kind of know a little bit about it. We talked about it a little bit, but if you could only share one message for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
Don't lose yourself in the process, right? Like we talked about it earlier in the conversation, like, well, how do you have time for this or time for that? Like business. Do you know how many people that I know that are very, very rich, but they're mentally broke? They're spiritually broke. They're financially rich, right? Like, there's plenty of overweight, successful entrepreneurs. But let me ask you this. If you're worth $10 million or $20 million, but you're miserable in your own body and mind, is that really success? So don't forget yourself throughout the process. Like I would rather be worth $5 million and feel whole, feel happy, feel fulfilled spiritually, mentally, financially, than being worth $50 million and not have good relationships with my family, be overweight, be mentally unfit. Like there were periods of time. It's not like the individual that you're talking to right now is the individual that started the journey. I'm guilty just as anybody else of neglecting my family, neglecting my health, neglecting my faith, neglecting everything because my sole focus was on money because that was going to provide me a certain feeling and emotion. It's going to justify me. It's going to give me credit. It's going to give me everything that I lacked when I was little. Because all the arguments, all the fights, the environment that I was in is all because it was lack of money. So if I go all in on money and I make a bunch of money, all my problems are solved. When in reality, the most money that I made which was close to $2 million in a year personally, I was at the lowest that I had ever been. Because at least on the journey to making money, there was hope that money would solve all my problems. But what happens when you have money and you still have problems? Now you don't even have the hope. And that's when I had to really dive deep and say, what are my priorities in life? Who do I want to become as a man? How do I want to make an impact? What's the ripple effect? Not just the financial ripple effect that I'm going to have on myself, and my kids and my wife, the real ripple effect that I'm going to have on this earth, the impact that I can make by designing a day that creates a certain human that other people could look at, and just me doing what I do every day is a big enough example to make other people believe that they could do something special with their life too. And I'm telling you right now, money can fill up your bank account, but it can't fill up your soul. You'll have to find something that fills up your soul. And if that's the business that you do, cool. Some people find a business that fills up their bank account and their soul, right? Like accounting, it's going to fill up my soul. Not really, right? Like it's a business that fills up the bank account, and it does serve entrepreneurs, and it does do positive things out there in the business industry. But I still felt like that I wasn't living up to my potential. And if you forget yourself in the process, no matter all the riches that you get, it's going to be meaningless, because you can get all the accolades. A million people could tell you how great you are. If you don't feel that great, it doesn't matter. You have to go to bed at night knowing that you are who you say that you are, and that you're exhausting the tank every single day, and you're becoming the individual that you were destined to become through your daily actions and your habits. So don't forget about yourself while you're trying to build something special that will fill the bank account.
Don't forget yourself in the process. That's a powerful message. So make sure that if you're looking for a speaker, don't go to Trevor. He's okay. No, just kidding. No, with Trevor, man, I really appreciate the time for you coming on, bringing this value, bringing insight of your journey, sharing with us what the process should look like and some of the things that we need to be thinking about, and really changing our environment to what we want it to be like, and taking action on that as how we're going to get the environment and get to where we want in life. And so if people want to follow you, follow Real Business Owners, where's the best place for them to find y'all?
Yeah, I mean, you could go to Google Real Business Owners, or you can find our podcast there, our Instagram page there. You can just go to @Real Business Owners on Instagram. You can go to Facebook, type in Real Business Owners, anything Real Business Owners, any platform, realbusinessowners.com, whatever it is, that's us. And so if you have any questions, if there's something that I could do to bring value to your life, send us a message. I'd be happy to help.
Awesome. And I don't think open enrollment's going to be open once this airs, but if you do want more information on Real Business Owners, feel free to reach out to me. Guys, be happy to tell you more about the mastermind. It's an incredible group, incredible guys with Trevor and Kel leading that group, but everybody's in there to help provide value. But Trevor, again, appreciate you coming on here. And for everybody listening, go back and re-listen to the episode and get your message out there, because your message matters.